Regular meeting. I'm gonna have Andreas, you will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The motion that the Board of Mayor and Burgess approve the minutes of the regular meeting September 6th, 2022, and special meeting of September 28th, 2022. Each member received copies for review. Second.
Discussion? Questions? All those in favor?
Motion the Board of Mayor and Burgess approve the monthly reports of September. Each member reviewed copies for review. Second.
Discussion, questions? Discussion? All right, so because we had such a productive meeting last week on a whole bunch of very important lengthy items, my belief that tonight's meeting will not be as long as usual, but we'll see. So what I did is I intentionally put down some topics, numbers 8, 9, and 10, that are going to require some discussion, some thought, some input. Nothing we have to make decisions on right away, but it would make my job easier if I knew what everyone else thought. So we'll take them one at a time, talk about them, and see the best way to proceed. So with that, we will go to public comment. Is there any public comment? If you would like to speak, if you're in the room, stand up. If you're on Zoom, go in the chat box or raise your hand, or otherwise make it known that you'd like to speak. Jim K, first call.
No one.
All right, second call for public comment. Nada.
Nada.
Last call. All right, hearing none, we will turn to Kyle Kelly for his brief monthly report.
Evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. I just want to highlight a few things, and then we could get away from me. Another busy month, 400 plus calls we did. Mutual aid, we did nearly 50. Last month, I told everybody about some help we were doing with into Waterbury, and we did that for quite some time. We stopped it last Friday. They are working on some other avenues to try and boost their presence in the city and cover their calls. But we have still since been going mutual aid to help them out, and we will as needed. Another good update I want to give is our new ambulance is it hit the production line. I think I sent that to everybody, and it's looking good. Garnet and gray, getting some work done. So hopefully we should see that in the next month, maybe 2, which is fantastic news for us. We could really use it. We did welcome back one of our EMTs, James Bishop, who was on a military deployment. He'll be back. He's back stateside now, and we'll be back to work in about a week or so once everything he has is taken care of. Other than that, you know, we there's some community events we did. Had an amazing time riding around and watching the Mission 22 hike. That was pretty amazing to see everybody that did that. Kudos to everybody involved for putting that on. And other than that, that's all I have.
All right, any questions for Kyle? All right, hearing none, we will proceed to item 8, the Hillside Avenue reconstruction project. Now, we're all familiar with Hillside Avenue, the brick road that has deteriorated over the years due to faulty stormwater management plan. We've delayed improving that road for many reasons. One of which is it would cost a fortune to fix it and would basically be larger than our entire paving budget for a year, as well as other reasons, and as well as the fact that the bumps keep people slow there and it's a school zone. So it's not an emergency, but it's an eyesore, and it's one of the most integral parts of our history, and it's very important to us. So with all that background, working with Jim Stewart and Fred, we went to Naugatuck Valley Cog to see if we could find a way to get help with the road. And we embarked on a strategy where we prevailed by convincing the COG that it really is an arterial road. And the only reason it's not used more heavily now is because of its condition. But when you think about it, if you're in the west side of town and you're trying to get downtown, that should be one of the major arteries. So we convinced them to reclassify the road to an arterial road, which means we're qualified to seek lots of funding for major improvements to the road, to the stormwater system. So the stormwater system is totally flawed and has lost its way over the years, and there would be no point in even attempting to repair the road without addressing the stormwater system. So we applied for a LOTSIP grant, where in essence we're asking the LOTSIP program to fund the everything involved in constructing and reconstructing the stormwater management system, and then leaving the actual finish, the bricks or whatever finish we choose to the town. So the total project would be $3.9 million to fix everything and to use bricks again. We've learned that we qualify for a LOTSIP grant of $2.24 million, which would be the cost to redo the stormwater management system and other improvements, with it being left to the borough to cover the rest, which would mean we would then have a choice of all brick, part brick, or whatever. So I guess what I want to do is, and again, I'm not going to be looking for a vote or a decision. And I will say that the Historical Society and many people in Naugatuck want to see the brick remain. And it probably should remain from a historical standpoint, which in my opinion is part of our culture, but it's still a big ticket cost item. So I just want to discuss it. I mean, we work on things like this all the time, and I think before we go to the next step, it would be good to hear from the Burgesses on the best way to proceed. So the recommended approach is that we proceed to get the funding to redo the stormwater management system. And if we get that, we will be left with the decision of how to complete the road. I'm in favor of, I don't want to say all brick, I'm going to say mostly brick. I'm in favor of maintaining the tradition, remembering that that whole park was designed by Frederick Olmsted, the foremost landscape architect in the United States of America. And it's really part of our history. I don't know if we need to do 100% brick, but I would like to see a very large brick component while we continue to upgrade the rest of the park and make it, with the overlook up there, just make it what it really was meant to be, a sensational view of downtown Nutley. But that's my opinion. And last time I checked, we're still in a democracy. So I figured I should throw it around and see what everyone else thinks. Should I call on people? I like to call on people with a quizzical look on their face. Not that you have one, but I looked at you first, so. Would anyone like to, register a call?
I would know my thoughts. Obviously, that's an integral part of the history of Naugatuck. Of that whole viewscape from hillside all the way down across Maple. We spent last meeting talking about our. I think it's just that hillside corridor as it is to do the bridge, as it is to do the rest of downtown. My only fear is finding the sources to pay for it. That would be the one thing. If, and we would have to make sure we straighten out whether it be through grants or what have you, the historical value, maybe there's a way to find grants, but I agree, brick is what we should do there. If we can find a way to do it, replenish it, and a school zone, it does force people to slow down. Even without the craters we have there now, it would be better to see brick there. I would love to see brick, I'd love to see it historically preserved, but I'm just.
So you've done a great job of defining the issue. And I agree with every word you said. In the end, I will point out that this is in our TIF district, and it would qualify, I believe, for TIF funding once we finish our TIF district, which could be one way to approach it that would not have a dramatic impact on the budget. But I would say, Jim, how long before we know whether we are on the right track with lots of?
Well, we had the preliminary application with COG approved. The next step is to submit a real application to DOT. We don't have any worries about getting approved to DOT because and VCOG really is the gatekeeper. DOT is just going to want to make sure that
Jim K, we've lost communication with the outside world.
DOT just wants to make sure that it will comply with their program.
So that was.
And it is a collector street, and and we're looking to repair it. And so I have no doubt that it's gonna qualify and they will cover it. And we also included, the granite curbs, the decorative lighting, and the drainage, as Mayor said, and new sidewalks. So those would all be covered by the grant, but as you said, the street or the bricks
So-
will not be covered.
So my question was, when?
I would say, in the next 4 months, 4 or 5 months, we'll be submitting the second application, if not prior to that, and then we should have an answer by spring. The next thing to do would be to decide if we want to move
Right,
ahead.
so we have, this board at least has until spring and the budget season to come up with our thoughts. And maybe, I guess I'm asking you to put together a few potential cost options for all brick. I'm gonna say all brick, mostly brick, and some brick.
Okay.
Something like that.
But I would expect we would put in our budget the design fees for next year.
Right.
The board wants to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, once you were approved with lots of, it takes at least a year to go through the process. So it won't be until the following budget year, not the upcoming one, the one after that. But by that time, we should be prepared to vote on a final plan.
Concerns.
Yep.
Number one, I'm skeptical of bricks, because we've already seen it once. Number two,
Let me stop
We
you
under-
there.
yeah.
The bricks on Hillside Ave worked perfectly for 100 years. It's a different case than the bridge.
but also, when they built that thing, many years ago, it was for horse and buggy. Over time, we put buses, cars, etc. on that road.
Let me just say, this is not an argument, I just want to get the facts out there. The street department used to have masons who went around to all our catch basins and repaired them on a regular basis. We lost our masons and many other workers, and that's when the road, the storm drains started to deteriorate and the road went. I'm not an engineer, but I believe the bricks will work. But they have to be maintained and there's a cost involved with that. And I'm not arguing with
No,
that,
so
I just wanna,
So I'm gonna finish my thought.
all right, I want your thoughts. Fine, I guess, yeah.
I get it, but we can all have
No, I-
agree to disagree on
Right.
certain aspects.
Right.
Concern is that, longevity, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you really need to sell me on this and show me an area that has a brick road that is last for a period of time. Not just a straight road, because this road is also a hilly road. And I was skeptical when we did the bricks on the bridge, and I expressed my opinion when we approved that. And so my skepticism is right up there with the bridge, is that it didn't work. But I'm not saying this isn't gonna work. But you need to persuade me, and give me some input, that this is gonna be a proven fact, that it's gonna last for a period of time. And I gotta believe, if this is a concept that's done in other areas in Connecticut or New England, I don't care where it is, but you need to show me that, hey, this brick road has been here, and it was done in 1980, and it's still looking really good. And today, the standards are much better with the better quality of product than there was back in the 80s. That's where I'm coming from.
No, I totally understand your concern, valid concern. I just want to make the point that this road is far different from the bridge, because the bridge is on a concrete base, and it's the base is the problem, because there's no drainage that's effective, whereas this could be effective.
The drainage was the issue on the bridge, because the drainage system sucked.
It didn't work.
I have a thought on this, if I can.
Why don't I call on it?
Sorry.
So I recognize Burgess George Murphy.
Thank you. So I do agree with Charlie. I think it needs to be. Money is a factor. And I also do agree with Bob. And besides anything else, snow plows are my biggest concern on a brick road. Snow plows tend to tear up roads pretty bad, and that's asphalt. In regards to brick, and with that being said, is there any potential, and I haven't been on Hillside for a while because I need my suspension. But is there any way we can do such as maybe a hybrid thing? Because I don't want to get rid of the history of it, but do like the 2 lanes of the road in asphalt, and then do the sides of the road in like a brick. So you're still keeping your brick, the historical factor of it, but switching the main travel lanes over to asphalt. So is there
So
anything we
the
can do?
answer is yes. So when I said all brick, some brick, hardly any brick, that's sort of
That's
like what I
great.
meant.
Okay.
So we should look at that. Anyone else? Right.
1.7 is a lot of money. And I think there's a lot more things we need to do that are more important than that. I agree with George. I think we should do asphalt with some brick in order to just keep the historical value. But I think more importantly, if we do brick, it's gonna take longer and it's gonna disrupt the school. If we do asphalt with some brick, I think it's gonna be more easily repairable when it needs to be repaired. And like he said, he's easy to plow. I'm just concerned brick is gonna take a very long time and what it's gonna do to the school. So I would agree with some type of a hybrid like asphalt and brick on the sides or down the middle. Project of this nature, start to finish. And if you did an expedited type system,
what will be time frame? Could you do it in a summer session when there is no school?
I don't think so. I don't think you could get it done in that 2-month period.
Night and day. Just asking a question.
I mean, I really don't think so. If you're laying all that, if you were 100% brick, no. If you were just doing the granite curb and paving it, maybe. And then you do the sidewalk after the fact. It's possible, but that's awful. It's awful tight. I think that you really need some more time outside of that summer months, or you're gonna be paying much of a premium to do it.
So how you do this project? When the school, for the school, I mean. How do you start this project? And then, I mean.
Well, the road's been closed before too, during school hours, so. There's no doubt, I don't think anyone disagrees with the fact that we're gonna get the stormwater system fixed, correct?
Right.
All right. So we're gonna do that during. The summer as much as we can.
Yeah, I would expect that would have to
Right.
focus the project on the summer for the most disruptive time period. And I don't know if they have the ability to close half the road during school hours. You know, whether they go just to the east or just to the west. You know, so you can.
We're gonna proceed to attempt to get the money to pay for the stormwater system. You're gonna come up with several designs. We're gonna look at them, we'll discuss them publicly, we'll get public comment, and then we will vote, and whichever way it goes, it'll be. Megan? Yep,
I may be totally lost and confused on the drainage system thing. Weren't we talking about drainage somewhere else? This is separate from that project?
this is a separate project,
Okay. So it's this much and it's separate,
yep,
okay,
separate money too, in other words, this is separate money from a different source.
okay,
This drainage,
Additional money.
this drainage would run into our drainage
That's
system that
not
we're doing
fixed.
downtown.
Okay.
Yes.
so we'd have good drainage and then potentially going into what's still bad drainage. Right,
No, the downtown system will
Okay.
accommodate the problem. This will just make it better.
gotcha, okay,
Yeah, the downtown's gonna accommodate the downtown problem. This will, including that section that goes up Paris Avenue, is gonna resolve that problem on Meadow Street.
okay,
You know, we all have to remember, this is an unusual road. As we all know, in Ripley's Believe It or Not. Does anyone not know why it's in Ripley's Believe It or Not?
Yeah.
I-
Yeah, there's an entrance on each floor.
No, I said, does anyone not? Pay attention.
so I actually,
Does anyone not know?
I don't,
Okay, so that's the only road in the United States of America that is a 3-story building where you can enter all 3 stories at ground level from the same road. So if you think about Hillside Ave, at the top, there's the entrance
yeah,
on Hillside, halfway around, goes to the 2nd floor. You go all the way around, it goes to the 1st floor. That design is highly unusual. It's the only building that has it. And it was designed by Stanford White, the foremost architect in the country, and Frederick Olmsted, the foremost landscape architect in the country. It's got dramatic history, and it's got the strongest case that could be made for preservation. That's why I'm treading lightly here and looking at it much more carefully than just a dollar and cents item. This is a very special place.
Maybe there's a historical preservation.
well, that's what I was gonna say, but it's.
We've looked.
We've looked.
Yeah, we've been talking about this street for 30 years,
Yeah.
years. And 30 years ago, it was like 1.5. And then, you know, it's increased since, but this is a project we've talked for 30 years.
You know, I think we need to look at, obviously, the different specifications of what we think would be the most cost effective way to do it that preserves the history and the meaning of the street. So, you know, I think that's kind of where we are at this point.
Can I ask, why do we always go with granite curbs instead of something less expensive?
Well, I'm gonna have you, when we get to street standards, I'm gonna ask that question to our DPW director, who's prepared to make a major presentation.
Because I'm below the quarry.
It's
That'll be under streetscape amenity design standards on the agenda tonight. We'll just like that.
Yeah,
Now, Jim, I have a question for you, the drainage issues. That has an impact on the school building itself too, because you get a lot of moisture in there and where there are mold, you know, possibilities and issues in some parts of that building. That if we get this squared away, the sewage piece squared, that's what the drainage piece squared away, we could help maybe preserve the building in and of itself. The longer we wait, the more damage it's doing to the building.
I agree. Currently, that drainage going down the road is 6-inch diameter clay pipes. There's wide connections without any you know, method of getting in there and cleaning them on the fact that they're broken and 6 inches. And what's happening is the groundwater is traversing from that rock ledge area across the road. And originally those bricks were set on concrete, and over 100 years, the concrete is turned into sand. The 6-inch culverts have crumbled and clogged. And so the groundwater, you know, causes that bed to move up and down when you know, freeze thaw happens and all sorts of problems happen. I feel for Bob, because having bricks on a steep slope is a challenge, because they will tend to, if done the typical method, they might tend to creep down, and you'll
Hey,
see
Jim,
that.
it
Yes.
wasn't a challenge for Mike Kelly or John Burke. How come you're so challenged?
It was bad when I got here too. I don't think it's gotten much worse over the
That
last
was,
20
that
years.
was sort of a joke.
So, but you can see the bricks, how they make wave patterns now. They're moving down like they are on the bridge, actually, so.
Water always finds a way. The way to stop it.
All right, anyone else? I mean, this is obviously gonna come back again. And there's no like real rush on that, Jim, but that's something that we should be working
Yeah,
on.
we had talked about putting a band of brick on either side. We had talked about brick crosswalks. We show about I don't know, about 4 or 5 of them on the road now at each important area. We talked about taking some of the existing bricks and using them in the turnaround at the side of the pool. And maybe on the sidewalk towards the monuments, all these different ideas as ways to maybe not have bricks everywhere. So that'll be something we'll look at.
All right, any further questions or discussion? All right, for our second public discussion tonight, we will proceed to item 9, the Bank of America, which, as we all know, is now a borough property. When we acquired it and were considering acquiring it, we had many options, and we still do. There are 2 major options. One would be to rent it out, get it, producing rent, and maximizing the revenue side of the equation, while we acquire extra parking for downtown, which we need a lot more of, and while we control our own destiny by not allowing something to go in there that we don't want. So owning it allows us to control our destiny, control what's going to happen. So essentially, the 2 major choices we have are to rent it out and to maximize our our revenue and to get more revenue for the budget. Or to utilize it, I'm gonna say, as a town building, not so much for town office use, but for uses similar to those in the event center, which we will most likely be selling in the next year. And there are many, many uses there. Many people go in and pay rent, nonprofits use it, the town uses it, police, fire, fire, police, town meetings. So it's got many, many uses. So, I think what we should do tonight is talk about the building, and I know a lot of you went to look at it. And just talk about a general direction. I'll say, revenue or municipal are the two general directions. So I guess I want to hear everyone else's thoughts before, and again, there's no rush. So let's make a wise decision. And let's hear what everyone thinks.
Is the roof in anywhere?
Yes, but
Okay.
it's not immediate.
Okay, well, regardless of what we do, we have to fix the roof.
Yeah.
Whether we rent it out or we use it as a municipal. In my walkthrough, and I understand that there was a section underneath that we did not see,
Right, so I want you to see that.
okay, which apparently is a large open area, but
Well, we own it now, we can go whenever we want, so,
the areas that we did see,
yeah,
especially downstairs, to me, it was just too many nooks and crannies and not a lot of areas to even think about using it. Number one, number two, the upper level, I don't know what the hell you can use there, okay, because there's a handicap section on the right side, it's granite curving, and you got the huge vault in the back, and it's not really that big. At upper level, doesn't look that big with everything that's in there, so we have thought maybe the gym room would work there, but God no,
it won't be as big as.
it's very small.
With that
It's
being
really
said,
small.
is there a possibility of removing walls?
Yeah.
To
Well,
open the space?
well, okay,
And I understand it's like a historical type building, right? It's.
let me say a couple of things. To some extent, yes. There's also the possibility of the second floor. There's a possibility of a mezzanine. And there is some additional area on the lower level that you didn't see that I want you to see, which is not all cut up like the rest of it. I'm gonna say it's a room maybe a little bigger than this one,
No kidding. The area that we didn't see.
the one you didn't see. The problem with it is it's underground.
Yep.
There's a walkout basement. It smells like a basement. I'll just leave it at that. I'm sure there are some water issues that would need to be improved. But it's an interesting area.
Yeah, I mean, Mike was there, Rocky was there, my sister was there, Fran was there, Rebecca was there. So there was a few of us that were there, and
So I would say, and again, we're not gonna make a final decision today, but we should go look at that again. And I'll bring Bill, the building inspector, here so we can talk further about it. But the major problem with the building is the lack of a secondary access from the second floor. So, the roof is an issue, the lack of a real legitimate code compliant exit from the second floor is an issue. The elevator doesn't work,
and also restrooms are an issue.
restrooms are an issue. So. You wanna say anything, Rocky? You still-
I didn't realize there was so many issues in this building. I'm concerned with
Well,
what,
they're really, it's a solid building.
it is a solid
With
building.
great mechanical issues
Yeah.
except for the elevator.
But again, that's my concern is that now we're gonna have to maintain it. And it's gonna need some repairs. It's gonna have cost money for remodeling. It's gonna have cost money for an elevator. It's gonna give more work to our people in order to take a look at it and take care of it. It's gonna need a fire escape. I mean, every time I think about something, I think about money and what it's gonna cost. I think one of our options should be to put it up for sale and see what bites we get, but yet preserve some of the parking for the borough.
That is an option.
Preserve all the parking and then allow them to take X amount of parking spaces.
Yeah.
Selling it is an option.
Just to see what kind of bites we get and, you know, what kind of offers. I just think we're gonna have to have a budget for it now. It's gonna have to be added to the budget every year. And I have some concerns I didn't have before.
It to me just almost like, it sounds like a smaller event center with the issues, a lot of the problems we were having with the event center. With, you know, the heating and cooling, there was so many issues with that building that we just were like, it's so expensive to fix. I feel like we're kind of walking into the same sort of issue with this building now.
There are issues, there's no doubt. There's also a lot of demand for the building, just so you know, like, when you sit in my chair, everyone wants a place to have their meetings to go. It's a convenience to the public. It's at a cost. So that's the balance.
I'm almost thinking that, you know, once we start putting money into this facility. Boom, 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 and before you know it, we're gonna be at $500,000 without batting an eye.
And then access, if people want to use it, you have to have somebody there to open the door, close the door later and.
George? Oh, you don't have to say anything, I'm just.
So my only question is, if we were to put it up for sale, is to being that we own it, is the town gonna be responsible for fixing it before we sell
Well, if we sold it, we would market it as is.
it?
Or we would make it code compliant and sell it as is with the rest of the issues. But retain the parking. That is an option. And again, we would want to sell it to someone that has the use that we prefer.
And are we able to secure the parking?
Yeah.
But we're able to sell just the building, but not the parking.
Well, it would be a combination. We'd sell enough to make it zoning compliant, but retain the rest for ourselves.
Any idea what we're losing as far as tax revenue?
60,000.
That's gross, still getting the 20,000. For the rental.
Oh, yeah, it's actually
ATM.
less, because we're getting 20,000 plus or minus for the ATM
Right,
machine,
Right,
so
yep.
40,000.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, it's an absolutely beautiful building, and I like the idea that we have it, so we can keep it that way. And the idea of renting it out to have a revenue stream and then still being able to have parking for town use is something that I prefer for myself.
You wanna buy it?
I want to-
Oh, okay.
No, he wants to list it.
Yeah, I would sell it.
Yeah, I guess either way, it can go either way. You invest the money into it. If we invest the money into it, we get it up to snuff and we rent it out, we're gonna eventually make that money back. Over a longer period of time, or we sell it and we make the money right there. Or we break even right there. I really don't have a skin in the game in this one. It could go either way.
It's a tough call.
Yeah, I would just hate to see somebody buy it. I would just hate to see somebody purchase it and do something horrible to it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know if it's historic, and I don't know how old it is, but the building itself is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I think
Is
there's
it
some,
considered a historic building?
Is it designated?
Well, I'm just saying, like, now that we own it, can we have it?
you know?
We can
Reserve
do anything.
or
I
whatever. so
think
that-
it's from the 1930s,
oh,
so it's not as historic as our other buildings.
The building itself is beautiful, the inside, the ceiling, the painting, all of the structure, and, you know, if you went in there and you just looked up at the ceiling, there's a lot of, probably some serious history in the development of some of that design. You know, some of the concerns are, you know, if you use it to replace the event center, you have to do some structuring inside to make it a little bit more spacious. You know, what's the cost of that, moving some of the desk areas out and shoring up some of the space, and then perhaps putting in a mezzanine level or whatever. And then, you know, and then you have to calculate on the other side, how much you're gonna get in your return when you do that. So, because, you know, we're gonna lose the event center, which is a good place for, you know, activities in this town, so you have to figure out how you're gonna manage the other side of that.
Well. Well, you already told me.
Yeah, a couple things.
Grant? I'm not expecting a final.
No, I
answer.
know that I have concerns after touring the building, as you mentioned before. I think some of it, the basement could be used for storage or, you know, resale. Jury's still out on the other part of the building that we haven't seen yet. I'd like to take a look at that, see what potential it has. The main level, as you stated, you could put a mezzanine up there. You could put a second floor. I think a second floor would be
Second floor would be more expensive.
extremely, if you look at the inside of the building, the contour of the ceilings, the amount of space you have up there, I think a second floor might be cost prohibitive. A mezzanine might be the way to go with and along with that, you could put a second way to get downstairs, whereas the present in the back, the second floor in the back is consists of a few offices and one bathroom. There is, as you mentioned, there is no second egress from that, and you would, if you were going to keep it the way it is without putting, say, mezzanine on it, you would pretty much have to put an exit to be directly to the outside, rather than just back down. And
Fire pole.
yeah, it's, I mean, it has a lot of potential. I could see a beautiful restaurant going in there, gorgeous restaurant. At the main level, I think, one of the, you can be very creative with that vault down there, that it would take, a team of people to carry that thing out. It's, you know, I don't think as good as our public works is, I don't think the entire room would be able to carry that thing out. It's huge, and it's I could see that area being used as if it was a restaurant, as you know, where they store their wines and they're, you know, just give it some ambiance. I think that, you know, that's my vision for it, but you take that and you could rent out, you know, done right, you could do the same thing, but rent it out as a space where people could use it like the gym room, not as big as it, but maybe even a little more upscale than the gym room. I think you could do that. Or rent it out for meetings and so forth. I think it could make it very beautiful, the interior could be done beautifully, as Dorothy mentioned, if you go in there and look up at the ceiling, it's amazing. And I think it has a lot of potential. I could see why you wouldn't necessarily think of it as a place where you put offices in, when, you know, we're talking, you know, possibly some medical offices in there.
Yeah.
I could see where they would have some concerns about the structuring offices in there. I mean, it could be done. But if you do that, you're gonna take away the beauty of the ceilings of it. I'll say there's a balance, you know, it's, I think there's a lot of potential. You know, like anything else, it would cost money to do it.
Charlie, you wanna add anything?
We first purchased this, the hope was, the primary thing was we wanted to be in charge of the destiny of that building.
Absolutely.
And now we've got to own that. We own it, we own the building, we own its destiny. Now we have to make those hard decisions. Rocky, I agree 100%. When we first started, like, my first, oh, wow, yeah, all our gem room functions, then when parcel A goes, could be moved there, that'd be nice, because that's the only negative I've heard from people about the parcel A development is we're losing the gem room, we kind of depend on that for lots of functions. Small organizations get 4 big banquet halls, have grown accustomed to having that in town. That being said, having been on the library board for many years before coming on this board, I did antique building 101, and it's not cheap. Anytime you want to have work done, it's specialized work, it's specialized craftsmen. You can't just have a roofer come in, there has to be an element of knowledge about how to work with some of the older stonework and so forth. It's not cheap, it's not easy. And should government be in the real estate business? Should we be owning as landlords? I mean, we already do that with several
So let
buildings
me
in
answer
town,
that. Smart government should, dumb government shouldn't.
but how we run it, maintenance, are we staffed enough to maintain that? And able to keep it where it needs to be as a landlord, we need to keep it. So as much as I would like to see it used, I'm leaning more towards, could we put it on the market and test the waters? And see what's out there. And again, we have we're not gonna sell it to a group that's gonna do that in the building. No, we would be very particular about who we would sell to, but the parking is key, we can't lose that. Because that was our biggest game for that whole thing.
We could investigate all three concurrently, actually.
Looks like it was appraised at $1.5 million, and I'm sure it's worth more now. Built in 1930.
And I think between the upstairs and downstairs, it was about 7,000 square feet.
I mean, realistically, we could always, excuse me, we could always fix it up. And then sell it for more.
Flip this back.
Flip this. I bet.
The
And
flipping,
make a reality show process.
flipping for a higher price is not what we want. We want the right use for a longer time.
And Mayor, all the considerations too with the post office next door.
Yeah.
Their destinies, the destinies of these two buildings are tied together, whether they want it to be or not. They share a driveway,
Yeah.
they're right on top of each other. I mean, about 4 yards of difference between the walls. We're gonna have to make sure we have a conversation with the owner of the post office, have them involved in this as well, because there has to be some kind of element
I'd
of.
say joint marketing.
Yeah. That would have to be where we go.
And what I mean by flipping it is,
I know.
there's.
Flip it to
Somebody's gonna
someone
come,
we like.
flip it to somebody you like, but also, it's also got more appeal to it if it's in better condition than if we used it, or we sold it as it is now. Whereas, if we did some improvements to it, made it look good, put a fresh coat of paint on it, or whatever we decide to do with it, you're gonna be more prone to have that sell rather than, somebody who's of repute's gonna come in and they're gonna try to fight with you on the price.
So. I'm gonna have, Bill. Give us some cost estimates of what it would take to get the building. To the point where it would be useful as a municipal building. And we can consider, selling it. Retaining the spaces or leasing it. And we can test the market. And we can also, while we're doing that, evaluate the municipal uses. So I think all three are possible scenarios.
Actually, Bill can also see it downstairs where it's all choppy, different little rooms. If any of those walls could be removed. Don't know, we're not engineers, but
Downstairs too.
yeah, he would be able to tell. Yeah, you could take this wall down and make this area much bigger now. And what the other thing too is that if we're thinking about possible mini gym room. Maybe we get a restaurant tour. To look at the building and give some input on how it can be managed to do something like that. Because they're experts in that field, And,
we have one that wants to look at it.
okay, that would be cool, and maybe that's a destiny for that, is that this is how we can construct this area to be a mini gem room. Now, maybe instead of 200 people, maybe it's 75 people, I don't know, but maybe that's something we have to look at.
And could we also like kind of do what we're doing with the event center now, like use it for municipalities? And if something comes along that wants it,
Yeah.
then we entertain that idea.
The other thought too is like, I think, the parent leadership program, Jill Mahoney's, partnership program, they have space in there where they do all the storage and stuff when they do the
Well, they're,
drive and
they're
stuff.
one of many groups that's looking for space.
Yeah, so,
You also have storage space for, they have fire,
yeah.
a lot of things fit in storage. Right, so there's a lot of things we can do for this.
I don't know if you want to get Jan's input.
Oh, Jan. Jan,
I don't know, it's a tough sell, Pete. I'm thinking, I'd like to see what the market price is on that, because it sounds like the room downstairs on the inside, you got the huge lobby, right?
well,
That would be bigger, wouldn't that be, that's probably bigger than our gem room is now, no?
No, it's not, I don't know.
It's only 3,000 square feet downstairs.
well, I'm gonna set up another tour, where I'll go and take everyone to the secret area and, see if that makes a difference.
I don't know, but it sure would be nice to replace, it sure would be nice to replace that gem room somewhere, that's for sure.
Foils at the gym.
Yeah. What's a good time for people to go? Let's just start with the evening
Let's say after work for.
after
most
work.
people. Not me, I'm retired. Yeah.
Yeah, you keep telling us that.
You want me to set up the day in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah.
For an evening tour?
See, yeah,
So what's evening? 6 o'clock,
yeah, sure.
That's good.
right?
Yeah, 6 o'clock could be good.
Okay,
Yeah, flashlight with the
I'll do that, and then I'm gonna keep it on the agenda. So we can keep talking about it. And usually in a situation like this, things change and new opportunities arise, and we'll see.
If someone may come along with a price that we just can't. That's all.
All right, so we will proceed to item 10. Townwide sidewalk improvements discussion. So I put this here because this is a long-standing trouble spot in the borough. You know, when I started as mayor, the roads were a nightmare, and we've been spending a lot of money fixing the roads, and we've put a major dent into the problem, but we still have a way to go, and we're still spending money. But every time you do a new road and you finish it, it highlights the local inadequacies of our sidewalks. Now, our sidewalks are, unless they're on borough property, are the responsibility of the homeowner. But homeowners on a townwide basis have, and this goes back 30, 40, 50 years, have not really maintained the sidewalks. And notwithstanding our ordinance, nothing has been done about it. And it's a major problem. It's a major cost problem. It makes all the other cost problems we've been talking about seem very minor. It's a big ticket item. So we still have to address it and do something about it. And it affects the entire town. So what I want to do is establish I don't want to use the word committee because I don't like that word, but a group of town engineers Burgess's finance board people to come up with a townwide plan that could include incentives, it could include grants, it could include town money, it could include penalties for people who don't fix their sidewalks. It could be a combination of all of those things, but we really need to start on a plan to improve the sidewalks in the town. And if we don't start, every year, we've talked about this before, and we're gonna put some money in the budget, but, the budget's always tight, and we don't have a lot of extra money to spend on it. But we have to have a plan. You can't do anything without a plan. We need a plan, and the sooner we start it, the quicker we'll get to a better position. So I'm just gonna start with those comments, see what everyone else thinks, and then let's talk about next steps moving forward to develop a plan to address this major issue. Mike?
Yeah. So not only are we only talking about fixing sidewalks that already exist, or can we also include sidewalks that should be installed in areas where we don't have them right?
Well, we could talk about that. I guess the question is, who's gonna install them if they're on private property? I don't think it would be the town.
Well, the thing is that Bob's fought for years to get the sidewalks on City Hill Street. And that involved taking some property from the front of people's homes, and I know Jim was involved heavily with that. For me, what I'm looking at is Field Street. Starting at the Irving gas station down at the bottom of the hill. And working its way up, at least maybe to like Quinn Street, because people walk that road all the time. And especially to get to Bombers Pond, and you can get the Bombers Pond down to the Irving gas station. It's very, very dangerous for them to be on that road.
It's part of the problem. There's no doubt that it's part of the problem.
Yes.
And then we have sidewalks that aren't really needed at all. And we have areas of town where sidewalks are needed, there are none, and we have inadequate sidewalks. And don't forget, we have to treat everyone the same. You can't just fix one part of town and not the other. You have to have a town-wide plan. So,
But I live right up Field Street.
And he walks to Irving all the time.
and Field Street's like a super highway now, the paving came out.
Oh, yeah, beautiful job, David.
Yeah. So anyway, there's no doubt it's a huge problem. So, I'm gonna go around the table. Just for thoughts. Rocky,
I think maybe you should also, I don't know if the Board of Ed still has a transportation committee, but I think maybe you want to see if somebody from the Board of Ed wants to be involved. Many years ago, I chaired transportation for the Board of Ed, and we worked very well with Public Works. And we showed if they put in sidewalks and we saved money on buses,
who's that?
they go,
You said if they put inside.
if Public Works put in sidewalks,
You mean the town,
the town.
expense.
And we were able to save money on buses, eliminate a bus. We worked very well together doing that because it was well worth it. And they were looking in some places like Andrew Avenue, they did take people's property to make asphalt sidewalks, going up there. And we proved we could save money on busing if there were adequate sidewalks. So you might want to consider having somebody from the Board of Ed. Do you know if they still have a transportation committee?
They get rid of that many years ago.
I figured.
Just Bernice and everything else.
Just Bernice, but it probably isn't a bad idea to get the Board of Ed
Yeah.
to start looking at that again.
They may say, hey, you know what, we can save a bus if you put sidewalks here.
Yeah, well, so maybe not a Board of Ed member, but a staff member.
Yeah.
Which, yes, but then you still run into the same problem of people not maintaining their sidewalks.
Well, that's
So-
gonna be part of it too, isn't it? I mean, that's gonna be.
That's the whole,
That's part of the whole package that we're gonna talk,
right,
that we're gonna have to find a way.
yeah, because then you can't say, we're gonna put these in for these kids to be able to get to school, which I agree, I think it's a great idea, but then nothing happens to them, they're icy and a kid falls and.
Well, another way to say it is, we need a new ordinance
Yes.
that works, that plans for the future and takes into account everything we're talking about.
Took 10 years to get sidewalks on City Hill. And the only reason I was looking for sidewalks on City Hill is because of the school. I used to watch kids walk in the middle of the road every day going to school, and I says, it's a matter of time before somebody gets hit. Now, you still have some
Knuckleheads.
knuckleheads out there that don't want to walk on a freaking
Good
sidewalk.
job, Charlie.
Not
Really gonna be tipped on that one.
See it every day.
But, even when we did Carroll Street, over Carroll Street, where Central Avenue is. You know darn well that there's gonna be kids on that sidewalk over there. I mean, we should have addressed those sidewalks when they did the street. I know that there's some bad sidewalks over there. And to answer another question is, I'm more than happy to be on that committee.
You don't have enough committees. I think
How
it's
about-
about time you got.
I mean, the group.
VFB group,
The task force.
the task force, who else, anyone else from the standing building committee that would be good for that?
Ray Lennon, if he wants.
Ray Lennon? Good. Any, and again, we're just at the talking stages, any Burgess volunteers? Charlie,
I'll do it.
Mike?
Yeah, we gotta get some from the west side of town. That's important.
We got four,
Right?
so 4 is enough.
Who from the Board of Education should be involved?
Bernice.
Like Bernice?
Well, either her or her
For people.
designee,
Say let them pick whoever they think.
Yeah. And then, of course, we'll have town staff. And,
Jim and Jeremy.
yeah, Jim and Jeremy. You can't have my card.
And how many streets and or sidewalks are we looking at? in town?
We're looking at the whole town.
Wow.
How many are there? Do you know how many?
Well, that first thing might be
Right,
to
study.
inventory,
Yeah.
but it's a lot.
So it'd be inventory, those that don't have them, those that have them but need fixing, and those that are fine, you can just move on to the next.
Well, we know how many miles of roads there are.
Yeah, there has a lot has been done
Mhm.
throughout town already. And it's a really nice job has been done by the people that installed them.
We're even talking about over Maple Hill and.
Talking the whole town.
The Mapleville, not a lot of space for road. and
Well, that's,
sidewalk.
I'm like trying to picture it, like in my area, where,
Yeah, Mulberry's kind of tight.
yeah,
So we wouldn't even do sidewalks at Mulberry.
yeah.
We have that sidewalk on Donovan and nobody maintains, the guy that owns the property doesn't even maintain it. Everybody down Donovan Court will mow, trim, snow blow, everything in there. 'Cause the guy that owns it doesn't even take care of it.
So that will, in this whole meeting, this whole idea of putting together this group of people to look at the problem. You have to think about our sidewalks. It is the ultimate transportation oriented district issue. It's the oldest form of transportation, walking. And we 16.2 square miles roughly, here in town, with our ability to walk around town safely. Good sidewalks is important, and it's gonna be many different things we'll have to consider. Obviously, what we have, what we desire to put in. How are we gonna educate those who already have them to know that they need to maintain it and do it correctly? How do we encourage people to maintain and do it the right way? And lastly, we will have to come up with an ordinance with little teeth, so it could be enforced that people aren't maintaining. We talk about putting sidewalks for schools. If I live on City Hill Street, they put the sidewalks up. Kids who live from Worcester all the way up to City Hill are supposed to walk to school. Great, I love that when my kids can walk up to school. But in the wintertime, there's a couple people who just refuse to do their section of the sidewalk. And that means great sidewalk, and all it takes is one person to not shovel, and that ice is up and turns into a big big like concrete like ice. Then the kids have to walk on the road to go around.
That's
And
the
that's
same ones that
dangerous.
don't clean the storm drain. do they?
So what we do, the ordinance is definitely something very important to look at.
We have,
Because now it's not-
ordinance stuff.
But a better one, I think,
So
something
we have
more
to tweak it
enforceable.
maybe.
And educating people that what we already have, or tweak it and educate people, this is what you need to do. And what it defines, I think some people think if the sidewalk's not in the front of my house, or my property, I'm not worried about it. Well, is it the front of your property or is it adjacent to your property? Great examples of that are the people who live on maybe Lounsbury or High Street. They go in and out that exit entrance way all the time, but their property touches North Main Street, there's a sidewalk that they ignore.
Yeah.
And are they responsible for that or not? I think we have to clear up these gray areas.
Is
and
it
make
where
sure
your
that we
front
educate
door
people.
resides?
So we'd have to really think, well, then who's responsible for that piece of sidewalk? It's just as important as the one that's what's their address, right?
And then also
Yeah.
like keeping in mind, like the elderly that may not be able to do it, maybe have like a list of people
People
that
who can
can,
help.
so that we can.
That's very important. That happens a lot when you see someone's yard falling in disrepair. It's easy to say, oh, that neighbor, then you gotta think about, wow, they're in their late 80s or 90s and they don't have kids around to take care of it. So that's important that we do it with, we gotta have a heart and we put together this ordinance and we put in ways that we can make sure that people that are infirm or older or need help, we have something in place to help them. Yeah.
The state policy for students walking to school unless it's changed was a 30-foot road width. But they also said when typically cleared of snow. So it didn't take into account if somebody didn't clear their sidewalk.
I think also, as much as we have an ordinance, we need to praise as much as punish. I think it'd be good that we had some sort of a incentive for folks to
Yeah,
make them do it, because I mean, let's be real, there's gonna be some people who are gonna get that ordinance, they're gonna go. That way. But if there's an incentive on the back end, oh, so I'm not getting in trouble and I'm also getting some sort of an incentive back, they might be more prone to do it.
On the incentive end, one thing that can be done is we can obtain townwide pricing at lower costs for people. And maybe something even beyond that, but at a minimum, we can get them quality work for less money than they could get themselves.
Wasn't there a program for the senior center this past winter? Kids were going
Yes.
out and shoveling.
yeah,
trash.
that was good. That was a good program.
That's trouble.
But if we do like a town-wide sidewalk thing, maybe there's like an application that gets mailed out.
I'm also gonna have
to the
our grant
seniors.
writer look into it. You know, in the past. The only grants in the past that we were aware of were the small cities grant and, they were very difficult and competitive, so, but there could be new opportunities, so we'll definitely have our grant writer look at it.
And Charlie, to your comments, good sidewalks create good community.
Yes, tie us together. And make good neighbors, good neighborhoods. That's
That was the best thing that they ever did up in my neighborhood, was put sidewalks in. It's unbelievable.
brings people together,
Absolutely.
except when they let their dog poop in the lot.
Well, then they better have a back.
All right, last call for sidewalk comment.
Well, can we also talk about these grant curves while we're on the?
Oh, no,
No, yeah.
gotta wait till right off our part.
Next page.
All right,
Item 11, have a motion, the Board of Mayor Burgess authorize mayor has to apply for ZEV infrastructure project for electric charging stations.
all right, so we have with us tonight our distinguished energy consultant, Gary Hale, who has found an opportunity to procure at no cost electric charging stations, I believe at the high school. So Gary, why don't you just give us some background on this and what we can accomplish?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Under the state's electric vehicle charging program, there are incentives that are available to municipalities right now. What our thought was, keeping in mind with our mission here, working with Mayor Hess and Bob and the board, make Naugatuck more sustainable, no cost out of pocket for the borough, save money. This doesn't really, this helps make the borough more sustainable, does not have an impact on, as the mayor said, there'd be no cost to the community. There would be, under the state's programs, the incentives and whatever financing we would get would be to create initially 2 charging stations. Working with the school board or whatever in the high school somewhere that worked over there. Since that has the most traffic and I believe the largest staff population in the school system. We're finding in our work with the private industry and other school systems, we do a lot of work with ACES, which is the Area Cooperative Educational Services. When we do send a survey out to the school staffs in each of these schools, the response to the question, would you consider purchasing or leasing an electric vehicle if there were charging available either at work or in homes, and the response is overwhelmingly yes, greater than I thought it might have been. So we thought maybe we could help the borough step forward into this new way of doing things with motor vehicles. Again, no out-of-pocket cost, would be sort of a first phase experimental over there to see if there's some adaptation that people might want to make use of it, and the convenience for the teaching staff, the parents to visit it, for those who would want to make use of it if they were to have an electric vehicle.
You have to run I'm assuming you'd have to run a power source to that general area for that.
Yeah,
So do they also have, I'm gonna call them a canopy type system where there's carport
yeah,
that has solar panels on it that would produce
yes.
the same amount of electricity that would be able to utilize, and would that be a cost?
First of all, it's a great question. As you know, Bob, we did with this board's approval and school boards and the building, standing building, we've done the CHP project at the high school. Those are installed and running. We've yet to have a ceremony for that, but we will. We are on the standby list for solar project on the roof of the high school to replace the one that was there before. And because it's a large one, we've been on the standby. We're hoping sometime, Adam and I are hoping sometime this month, we may get a green light, but we're not certain about that one. Specifically, if we needed to put in more power to deal, if there was adoption and people were interested and started charging there, they would pay a fee using a credit card or whatever. And so there would be at worst wash, but there might be some revenue for the borough, depending on how much use. But the additional power usage, we could put in carports beyond power I just mentioned at the high school. We could, if it works there, we could put in some carports specifically for this endeavor, and also some battery storage. So, you know, our mission has been very clear from day one. We don't want to do anything that costs the borough anything. We want to do things that save the borough money. So in this case, it's not reducing your electric bill, providing a service to encourage the adoption of clean vehicles. But we think that we might be able to offset the power consumption in other ways. And of course, people are paying for the use of the power. So
Would the units, the EV units be put on the Board of Education side or the school side?
You know,
There's two separate.
the idea was to have authorized the mayor to apply, and then work with you and the school board as to where, you know, I'm not an expert on their buses and the vehicles and all that, so you want to do it in a way that does not interfere with educational activities, but allows people to do that. So that is sort of open, and of course connecting to the building, with the power. So that stuff is it's sort of like, let's apply and see if we get the grant. We can work out those details as we go along.
Do we know if anybody at the Board of Ed has electric vehicle? Guess that's a good question to find out, right?
It's coming.
And we did a lot of talking last meeting about downtown development, where our vision for downtown.
Yeah.
And I've been in other towns that do have those electric charging stations in their municipal lots.
Yes,
Is that a possibility
Yes.
that maybe we could fold that into our downtown development? When we build the new municipal lot, put in the EV stations, maybe a little less,
the answer is yes.
okay,
And the mayor is probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but the answer is yes, 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 we can do that. And would like to do that because, you know, the adoption or the purchase of electric vehicles relative to the fleet of vehicles that Americans consume or purchase every year is just under 5% now. It's expected to be by 2030, it's expected to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40%. So here in Naugatuck, having that in your economic development program, you know, mixing it in, I think will be a great service to the people of Naugatuck. So I would encourage the you to authorize the mayor to apply.
We had talked about these under the Mezzo administration and putting them at the train station. Yeah. And ended up passing on it because we wanted guarantees that there's absolutely no cost to the borough and nobody would give us that. Over time
Now
with
we have-
maintenance and
no, we got that.
Yeah.
even with maintenance of the units and.
Everything is covered. There's no, I understand exactly what you're talking about. And that was the very first iteration of EV. And that's an obsolete model now. Under the new programs, the cost of installing it, the cost of the power, the cost of the usage, everything is both transparent and no cost to the borough.
Would you need two different types, one for a Tesla, one for other cars, or the adapters?
Teslas have their adapters.
They have the adapters to work in
We
anything?
would go with the standard fast charging.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, any questions of Gary?
Would you start charging people for that immediately? Or are you gonna leave them free to start
We
in the beginning?
We haven't, you know, gotten into those details, but I am pretty steadfast that I don't want the borough to lose 5 cents on any of these green energy endeavors, so I think, and please don't hold me, but I think we would set up a payment system from day one.
That's good. What does the state do? Do they give it away free on the highways or are those chargeable too?
No, my understanding is that it's like a gas station. I mean, it's really the replacement of a gas station, so you pay as you should.
Okay.
You know if they're planning on putting any when they move the train station?
I don't know, right?
I wonder if,
Well, the answer is yes,
Yeah.
that will be part of the plan. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor,
Aye.
opposed?
motion that the board of mayor Burgess authorize Mayor Hester to execute all contracts, related documents for civil engineering services for Naugatuck Industrial Park Phase 3, with Civil 1, Sherman Hill Road, Midway, Connecticut.
Second.
All right, so as we all know, we have completed the preliminary work on the new industrial park. And we are now moving ahead with the final designs for the road, the subdivision, the stormwater, etc. So we've already decided to go ahead with this, and we will. These are the cost numbers, so the logical question is, how do we pay for it? So it's always been anticipated, and it still remains true, that we will be paying for this out of our TIF bonding. So it will not impact the budget. Our TIF program is not in effect yet. So we've developed an interim plan with Allison for a temporary manner in which to pay this while we wait for TIF and get reimbursed. So and this will apply to this item as well as the next item. So Allison, do you want to expound on what I said?
We need, funding, that we have, well, actually it's surplus from fiscal year 22. And, any funding that, we can move, temporarily to there while we're waiting for tech funding to kick in. Which will suffice for what they need in the interim for, preliminary projects.
Well, I didn't hear a word you said, but I know what the answer is. I don't know if anyone else.
She said, yes.
Yeah, she's got the fund.
They got it.
The surplus.
Well, I knew- I knew the answer.
Will fund it temporarily until things fix it.
Else heard it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
She's cute next time.
And again, as Bob just mentioned, we're also pursuing a grant, so we have another alternate source of funding, so. Either way, we've already decided we're proceeding. We're not gonna leave it as a parking lot. We're gonna make it into a revenue generating industrial sites. So this is the next step. So any questions or discussion on this item?
Well, just as I comment on a lot of these things, it's amazing to me how they come in with exact dollar figures, 25,000, 50,000. And there's no detail. I have no idea how they come up with the number. They give us their hourly rate, $60 an hour for clerical. That's pretty darn good. But you know, how many hours, how much an hour? How'd you come up with these numbers? Where's the calculation?
So Rocky.
I know how government works. They
Let me-
just
let me
make these
educate
numbers,
you
but
on this. Even though you're right. In today's world, you need competent engineers. This firm, not only are they competent and highly skilled, they respond like this whenever we have an issue. They really work hard for the borough. Their costs overall come in, I'm gonna say, certainly no higher than other firms and probably less. And I can vouch for them, but Jim, do you want to expound on that?
I would say the pricing is excellent.
Okay. Well, the only reason I say that is because this to me is like shopping at the big Y and the person's register says, hey, give me $200.
You
for it."
don't shop
You
for
know.
someone like this. You pick someone who's good, who can get the job done for a fair price, in my judgment.
Okay,
I wouldn't take another engineer just because they have a lower price for this project. It's a very special.
I believe you. but I just don't understand why they can't give details.
I also don't want to have them spend 20 hours doing a bid
Hey.
and charging.
$60 an hour clerical, when they pay them $25 an hour is pretty good.
By the way, they've done many projects for us already.
I understand.
At very reasonable pricing, and they've done a great job. All right, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Motion to board, Mayor Burgess authorized mayor has to enter in contract with Woodard and Curran, Port Street, Port Wall, Middletown for groundwater extraction, system operations, support and reporting for September 2022 through June 2023. Second.
All right, so essentially the same discussion. This will be paid for in the same manner as the prior item. I would note two things. Woodard and Curran is a very talented, highly respected LEP firm that has been working on this site for 20+ years. They're intimately familiar with it and clearly the best firm to work for the borough, number one. Number two, we've improved the pricing dramatically in this case by bringing in Veolia to do the testing for us, who were right next door, rather than an outside contractor. So we actually reduced the pricing on this dramatically by making that one change And, again, this will be paid for in the same manner as the prior item. Questions? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? All right, George, here we go.
14, discussion possible action on standards for streetscape design, sidewalk amenities, Church Street, Maple Street, Old Firehouse Road, Rubber Avenue, from Water Street to Hoadley Street.
Okay, so we're gonna amend that, I think. Right? There's other streets. correct?
Yes.
So why don't we amend it to what you said, plus plus other streets referenced in the report that Jim gave us
On the
today,
plan, yeah.
the streetscape and sidewalk report and map that's before us now. Are you good with that amendment? Mike?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right, so we have a motion and a second already?
Yes.
No, it's just the discussion. So, let's discuss it and then we'll prepare a motion. So last week we discussed streetscape design for the downtown area. We've also we're working on a lot zip project on Rubber Avenue that has elevated design standards. Old Firehouse Road has is going to have elevated design standards, and there are certain other parts of town that Jim is recommending have elevated standards. He's doing it in actually two different ways. There's a zone 1 and a zone 2. Zone 1 being, I'm going to say, super decorative. Zone 2 requiring granite curves. And we're also going to consider this plan on all roads highlighted on the map that is in everyone's package. So zone 2 yellow is granite curves only. The green are the much higher design specs. So with that background, Jim, why don't you take us through this? I think start with telling us why you selected these streets and what you're trying to accomplish and how you want to accomplish it.
So this began with our Rubber Avenue lots at project. We designed it with granite curbing, with trees, and with lighting, and similar lighting of downtown, or the same lighting that's downtown. The state saw the plan, and they say our program doesn't cover granite curbing, it doesn't cover lighting, it doesn't cover trees. It's a road improvement sidewalk project, simply. The only way you can have this stuff covered is if there's a formal policy saying that these are the requirements in that section of town. And therefore, anyone in the future who builds in that section of town has to build to this level. We're not, DOT saying, we're not gonna be the only ones paying for this stuff. If you're not gonna pay for it in the future, and you're not gonna make developers pay. So we started with making the standards on that road. And at the same time, I felt that it was the great thing to do would be carry it throughout the other roads that we thought made sense. So that twofold, as people want to develop in those streets, they build a sidewalk that meets those standards we can be proud of, and we don't have to rebuild someday in the future. And the second one is if we have another lots of project in the future on those roads, it's already set in stone. I mean, it didn't make sense to just pick one road, have a standard, and then come back and a developer work somewhere else. And they have a different standard. I wanted to use the same lights, the same brick, granite, the same light poles throughout town. And that's why we included Hillside. So when we put in for that project, they will cover the granite curves, they'll cover the sidewalks, they'll cover the brick crosswalks that we've included. So that's the reason why we're doing this. Simply, we're requiring granite curbs to all areas that are colored on the map. If it were me, I'd be requiring granite curbs on every road. And someday I want to go to the subdivision or the subdivision committee and the planning commission and have them change their regulations to require granite curbs for developers. And the question was asked, why? Well, because they're indestructible. You look and you can see old concrete curbs that from the salt, they fall apart. From the plows, gouge them out. And a granite curb, yeah, you might find a corner of it broken off once in a great while. But you can go to old granite curbs in New York and Boston, and they're 100 years old, and they're still as good as the day they were put in. So that's the reason why I like those. For me, it's either granite or asphalt, because Jeremy can fix the asphalt. We get calls about fixing concrete curb, and it's practically impossible. You got to pull the sidewalk out, pull the curb out, replace the curb, and then build the sidewalk back in. Or we go out there and we try to put some sort of a concrete repair on top of it, which doesn't last that long.
Now, those granite curbs are actually granite slabs, right? They're not this big, they're.
Oh, they're by 5-6 inches by 18 inches thick. So they run about I think $10 a foot to buy. Probably they were about 6 or 8 when I was pricing them last. I'm sure they got to be $10 now. But precast concrete was like 20%, 30% cheaper than granite, so it wasn't a big savings, and the price to put them in is probably close to the same. I mean, they do get a markup more. They're probably making more putting granite in than they are granite concrete, but that's your call. I would highly recommend going with something that's going to last forever. And once it's put in, if the sidewalk is replaced, you reuse the granite, or you just replace the granite fine. Only drawback of granite is if it's not compacted, it sinks.
Years ago, there was a load of granite taken out. I think some of them are piled outside the tunnel now, but they were much bigger slabs, like up than 18 inches. Why would you take them out? Once you put them in?
Whereabouts? Normally, we reuse them if we could. If they
Oh,
were
okay.
bluestone, sometimes they're those bluestones or those shales curbs, and they fall apart.
Oh, okay. Well, I know there's a couple of them outside of tunnel, and
I know Jeremy's
When they-
collecting everything he can.
when they were taken out, I know I've seen in people's backyards as benches, so I was just wondering why they would come out.
So the next item is fencing. We thought it'd be nice to have the same ornamental fencing that we've had, that we proposed and put on Terrace Avenue, similar to what's on the Greenway. So we felt that it would be nice to have it if developers are proposing it, or if it's in a project. We're not gonna force people to put a fence in if it's not needed, but this would be, so it's standard. We got decorative crosswalk, the same as we put on Maple Street, the same as North Main Street, so that that pattern and color matches. Again, I don't think we're going to force developers to put in crosswalks. That would be the town's responsibility. Site furnishings, you saw the other night a picture of what the current downtown plan is. They took these that we originally proposed, looked at them, says, yeah, that's a good set of standards. So they're carrying that through, and so what we're proposing that would be our standard for the town. So that would cover the benches and the trash receptacles and the bike racks. Pavers we talked about would be the same pavers throughout town. Sidewalks, again, we require concrete sidewalks. There wouldn't be any asphalt allowed. We require snow shelves if they can provide them with grass. We would require trees at intervals of 50 feet or as zoning requires. I think zoning requires 40 feet as can be built. And that's pretty much the requirements.
There's some people that have mentioned when they walk downtown, the lighting isn't quite adequate. It's not bright enough. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I
Trees are in the way.
agree.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Yeah.
The lights are probably not as bright as they should have been when they switched over to LED. They are not as bright as they were. Our plan is to replace the heads and replace the lights and probably make them more dense with the new design.
Oh, good.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but some of these streets that I see don't have existing sidewalks already. Am I correct?
Which ones?
The back end of Rubber Avenue,
Rubber Avenue has a sidewalk
All the way
all the way up to where it's shown.
okay, maybe I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
then.
I mean, it's asphalt and it's got the extruded concrete curb and it's falling apart and it doesn't meet ADA standards. But it's going up there.
But the reason why I'm asking is, would the granite curb sidewalk installation be in conjunction with the sidewalk project that we're also talking? So that we're not doing it twice,
Yes,
so to speak.
yep, that first section that's green, when it's gonna have granite curb, that's part of the project. It's gonna have lights up to Andrew Avenue. Actually, Dollar General's putting in granite curbs. So they've actually started prior to actually being required to, so.
Are you gonna put a sidewalk in front?
Yep,
Awesome.
replace the sidewalk in front.
They're gonna shovel it?
There's the route. I can shovel mine. Jim, do you have a specific spec on how the bricks are set in place?
I do.
You do,
I was waiting for you to ask that question.
well, because I want to review it. I've talked to a couple of people who have done.
I didn't make a lot of copies of these because I didn't know who would be interested in flipping through them.
Can I take this home?
You can.
Okay.
Be a quiz next to it. That information would be in addition to what you guys have been given already. So that includes the paver spec, lighting, specifications, the crosswalk specifications, all the engineering details that Wayne, when he was here, had created. So it's it would be an entire package of town standards.
All right, so is there any urgency in acting on this, or should we wait? till-
I would like,
Next meeting.
something, because I'd like to be able to send this off to the state and say, this is our new standard for Rubber Avenue, it's been adopted.
So Bob wants to look at it, so why don't we send
you
it
don't-
to the state? Tell them it's our new standard, put it on the next agenda to vote. And unless it's voted down, we already told them it's our standard,
It's not gonna hurt.
but
Will do. Just to let Bob know, the standard for the brick is similar to what was put in the pocket park on either side of opposite the bridge, which is a concrete sidewalk, asphalt, a leveling course, and the brick is glued down. So it can either be done that way or just concrete with a mortar bed.
And would you use for sand to go between the joints? With that
You use
sand?
a polymeric sand go
Okay.
between the joints.
The crosswalks on North Main look nice.
Yeah, I like the imprinted, crosswalks.
so you want to study that?
I just want to show it to a guy that
Okay.
has done this before, and I just want to make sure that it.
All right, so we'll
Okay.
send it off to the state, and Nancy will put it on our next agenda for a formal vote But when we do the motion, we will add the streets that are on the map that aren't listed in the prior motion, correct?
Very good.
Okay. Okay, next item.
The motion that the Board of Members approve the Santo Construction Farmstead Lane, Naugatuck to provide goods and or services for fiscal year 2023 as recommended by Public Works Director James Stewart.
Okay, Allison's gonna present this, but in essence, you're asking that this company be treated as an approved vendor. Is that what we're trying to accomplish?
Correct.
Is that it? Is that,
Just be put on the approved vendor list, through the motion. And,
no, I know, I see the wording doesn't say approved vendor, but that's what it means, right?
correct,
Okay.
What do they do?
construction.
What's their
Specialty.
specialty? Correct, yes.
Construction.
Do they build sidewalks? Do they build houses?
Lumber, it's wood, carpentry.
Good thing you have a cute dog.
Now, you said, Nick, was that my dog reference? She is cute.
All right, that's cool.
Well, that's fine. Any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion the Board of Members authorize the Controller Allison Bruce to refund the following tax refund approved by tax collector James Goggin and given read.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right, public comment number 2. So we'll start off. Yep, anyone in the room? I see Karen Alberta is stepping forward to make a comment. I can only guess it's about sidewalks, but well, you have the floor, Karen.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Jonathan for guiding me during this meeting of when this was not to speak. And speaking of density, I did not always know, and well, I had emailed Mayor who just 2 days ago, really, and he had recommended I come to the meeting, but I didn't realize all this was going on about sidewalks in town. So my daughter and I have been concerned about, particularly Etna Street, because it's in such deplorable condition. And it's here, it's the topic of the meeting, so appreciate being here. The thing is, I would like to focus on all the streets, but I would like to particularly focus on that. Now, for one thing, it parallels Rubber Avenue. One end feeds into Rubber Avenue, the other end feeds into Homewood. And it's like an alternate route for people walking on Rubber Avenue. And particularly students, and I don't even have any young children anymore. And I see students walking and there's. We have children, they're grown up.
This one never did. Excuse me, you did say,
I love my daughter.
you did, ma'am, you did say that you do not have young children.
Yeah, children.
Yeah, you did say that.
Yes. She's
Good saves.
The high school or but anyways, I've seen these students walking, my daughter's seen these students walking. And if the sidewalks aren't in deplorable condition, there are no sidewalks, as someone brought up before. I didn't quite did. And for Field Street. And the thing is, Etna Street is near downtown and it also is near school zones. And I think it really could use focus, especially if you're gonna refurbish Rubber Avenue. If you look to the right, it looks like a third world country on that road. And if you put sidewalks in, nice sidewalks, it will bring up property values, it will bring safety to not only walkers, but drivers. Drivers don't want to be dodging students on the left and the right, and God forbid, sideswipe a young student walking, you know, so that's something that I've sent in some photos of.
Let me interrupt you for a second. I think what you're saying, and it's a good idea, is that the group that's looking at this prioritize streets, and that certain streets such as Etna Street maybe would, you know, would get action before lesser used streets. So I think it's a good comment to, in the scheme, we developed to prioritize certain trouble spots such as Etna Street. Is that what you were trying to say?
Probably, yes. Thank you, you're good at that. And, it would bring eye appeal, it would bring a healthier pride to the community, more mobility. It would bring, even if you were like, now part of Etna Street was also resurfaced up until from Hoadley to Nettleton. But now from Nettleton, that feeds into Rubber Avenue, is still patchwork, and that should be finished off, so that it's a nice, smooth, solid finish.
That's part
But
of
if
the
you
plan,
are,
right, Jim?
That's part of the plan.
So that's gonna happen.
Yes, of course.
because, and if you do put in sidewalks, it is less asphalt that you have to put in. So, but those are all points I wanted to bring up and appeal to you. So I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Any further public comment? Starting with live in the room. All right, so in Zoom land, anyone who would like to speak can raise their hand, go in the chat box, or do something so we know you'd like to speak.
We have Francis Santana.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Francis Santana, state your name and address.
Francis Santana, 1 New Street, Naugatuck. I have a question about who is responsible for maintaining St. Francis Field?
St. Francis.
Is that a private property or is that something that the town maintains?
No, it's owned by the church. St. Francis School?
I think she said the field.
The field.
The field is owned by St. Francis Church. It's used by the town. And the town basically makes sure that anyone who uses it on behalf of the town is insured, but it's owned by the church.
Okay, there was an incident there last week with a Pop Warner player with a tree stump. And I know that they practice there often. So I was hoping that if it's Public Works or our people that kind of look into that stuff, or if you can steer me in the right direction to speak to whoever takes care of that, to take a look at that, because there was a child who got injured on that field playing Pop Warner last week.
All right, so I'm directing your comment to Jim Stewart, who will delegate it to the appropriate person on your staff, Jim. Sandy, maybe?
Yes.
I
Thank
see
you.
Sandra's in Zoom land, so did you hear that, Sandra?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any further public comment? Last call. Any further public comment? All right, we will go to Burgess comments, and we will start with Jan Mazeski.
I got nothing today, so you can go on.
Okay. Mike,
Yeah, no Councilman.
2 for 2. George,
I flapped my gums enough tonight.
3 for 3. Megan,
Good. Oh, I'm like, coffee with a cop tomorrow at Loaded Goat
okay.
from 9 to 11, I believe.
Is that, you sure about your time?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I gotta remember that. Rocky,
Yes, sir. Just a few things. Besides the coffee with a cop at the Go to Load tomorrow, Gigi is also having a fundraiser there for one of her many projects. Also on Wednesday, the 12th, Youth Services from 5:30 to 8 is having their Keep Being Awesome celebration
at Jesse's, and I know we all want to be awesome. Also, the Historic Society is having its annual meeting on October 9th from 1 to 4:30 at Jesse's. And then finally, on Friday, the 28th at noon at the Senior Center, it's bingo with the mayor.
It is?
It's on the schedule.
It's not on my schedule. Maybe I better check. What is that? What day?
Friday, the 28th at noon.
Oh, the 28th. Let me see.
Yeah, it's right after the 27th.
Before the 29th.
What do you have, the 20? 28. Yeah, you're right.
I'm always right. Tell my wife that.
Either.
BINGO.
By the way, anyone who hasn't called bingo should partake of that tradition. It's fun. And I think you'd enjoy it. It's a good thing to do. I like it.
That's it.
Dorothy?
Well, Planning Commission met last night and they presented the results of their survey that they put out for Housing Authority, and we have a population of what, about 31,500 people here and or more. 330 people responded to the survey. So that was not a big number of people responding. But from those who responded, they just felt that there was a greater need for affordable housing.
Right.
So, which is something we already knew.
Yeah.
So
All
that was the majority of the meeting.
All right, thank you. Charlie?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, we came off the summer and heading into fall. Summer, I want to just commend all the organizations that help bring downtown Naugatuck alive for every single weekend, pretty much in September. Everything from Sapaio all the way through to Mission 22. It's just a really wonderful thing to see that in this community that, you think back 15 years ago, we would have just Harvest Food Festival. Now we have so many good things going on downtown. It inspires people to come downtown, walk downtown, brings the community together. And I'm really excited to see how well that all went in September. Also, Arts Commission has done their post-mortem on the concert series like they do every year. And they've assessed the concerts and they, weather aside, it was kind of a rough year with those Tuesday nights when it had the thunderstorms. Like every Tuesday night there was a thunderstorm and our driest summer in years. But they did have a very successful series, so very well received. And they're looking at bringing back most of the acts from last year, but they have a few openings. They're actually going to survey the public as to what genre and what they would like to see more of or less of, and set up next year's concert series, hopefully by December, so they know. And one other point, just to make, this is the last scheduled Burgess meeting we have before the election, I believe. Get out and vote. Don't complain if you don't vote. Last election, we barely had 20% of our eligible population, the registered voters, get out and vote. We really, really need to make sure people vote in this election and not throw it away. Oh, there's no president running, who cares? The governor, your state rep, your state senator, your probate, all that important stuff will have a bigger impact on your life than the president ever will. And we really need to make sure Naugatuck steps it up. Most patriotic town in Connecticut, if not America, needs to step up and do its patriotic duty and vote on Tuesday, November 6th.
Well stated.
Hey, thank you. In the last year.
Sure.
Fran?
Civic duty.
Okay, what he said, but especially about voting, I think we all know it's very important. Everybody says it's important, and we all hear the ones after complaining about the results that didn't vote. So that, as you were saying, when people get the government they deserve, if they don't go out and vote, then so be it. Regarding senior center, Harvey asked me to make sure I tell the rest of the Burgesses that the senior day on the 22nd, the health day that September 22nd passed, was a huge success. It was a little stormy first thing in the morning, but it cleared up. They had the place was jammed all day. There was a lot of services there between
insurance companies, the hospitals, the ambulance, the CERT was there, and many, many different services, for seniors were there, and as Harvey said, remind the Burgesses, it was a success. Harvey did a great job, so I did my part on that. There's been something that we've talked about over the years that keeps coming up, and Rocky will hear me on this about bulk trash pickup. I don't know if it's something we should address again, look at it, see if it's time to, come up with a plan that might not be trash pickup, but people also have been asking if maybe once or twice a year, each household could bring something to transfer station without cost for that one day, even based on the fact that their taxes are paid up, they are a homeowner, or they are
Let's stop there for a second. So we have a bulk trash subcommittee. We lost someone, right? Jack?
Jack.
So
Me and Bob left.
So we need one more person. Any volunteers?
I think George was talking about that.
Well, trash pickup. Stop.
We're talking, well, you're always talking about.
You want to be on that?
Sure.
All right, I hereby appoint George Woodry as a member of the bulk trash.
He couldn't get that gavel quicker.
But I would suggest that a grand suggestion, you meet, come up with something, get cost numbers from the street department. And we'll present it during budget season. If you have a good recommendation, present it.
Yeah, we do have the numbers from the last time, we should have to update them to current numbers. And the numbers are high, no doubt about it. Very high. And this usually comes up when someone gets on social media and posted a sofa was dumped off somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize, if someone's dumping a mattress off, on Candy Road or down by Radnor Avenue in that area where the last one was, they could just as easily go to the transfer station. It doesn't cost anything to drop a mattress off there,
They don't even know that.
so
Mhm.
it's,
No, instead the town has to go pick it up.
now the town has to go pick it up and that does cost.
There should be something going out in the next tax bills, concerning
Yeah.
recycling and all of that.
Yeah, we were
Are
talking
you
about.
saying
that
there
last
should be or there is?
Well, there is, as far as I know.
Okay.
Hopefully
Why
that'll
don't
help
you
my
follow
neighbor
up on that?
who's chopping up.
It was more to educate the
Furniture
people
in
about
his yard.
recycling, number one, and number two,
Yeah.
a lot of the new people that come into town. Don't have any idea that, they're coming from other cities or towns
Other
that
states.
they can put their stuff out on the front yard and the town's automatically gonna come up with a pickup truck to pick it up.
We have a guy accumulating.
There's a lot of towns that do that.
I understand that, but it's all extremely expensive.
And there are towns that do that and have a bigger problem with litter and dumping than we do. And speaking of that, new people coming into town, one of the incentives that, we have an outreach liaison in, Turk now that she's been meeting with different services throughout the town and the area, including youth services, Mountain Valley Health, and veterans organizations, and she's setting up a group within CERT to be a committee that, in addition to being a hub for information of this sort, also to prepare a welcome
I
package
was gonna say, a welcome package would be helpful.
to new people coming to town, moving into town, and they'll have that information. They'll have something from recycling, the list of when your trash is being picked up. They'll have something from the different services. And that's, I think, Tina Royal is the person that's doing that, and she hit the floor running, and she's really doing a great job in organizing it. I believe she wants to meet with you, Mayor.
She has an appointment this week.
Have they connected with Jill Mahoney?
Oh, yeah,
On,
absolutely.
that services there?
I asked her a week after she proposed it, I said,
Mhm.
how are you doing? Have you connected with someone? She goes, she get one page, she goes, well, I connected with these, and then she went to the next page. And these organizations, this one hasn't gotten back, and, okay.
Mhm.
Sounds like she's on it.
She's
Yeah,
on.
that'll be helpful.
Wait,
for my
wait, wait,
neighbors
she's
that
on it.
just, moved in because I don't think they know anything.
Right.
And
And
they're
then,
from New York.
and the time is right. And it's also like. For those who don't know the whole workings of third, basically, these people are trained, they have to go through specific training that dictated by FEMA. They learn about building collapses, they learn about pandemics, they learn about different types of disasters. And I always equate it to, in addition to what you see them do, you know, maybe helping out with traffic at the event center. They get all this training, and it reminds me of a kid, the first day of kindergarten, he's sitting on the front step. He has all his new clothes on, or she has the new clothes on, at the lunchbox, and waiting for the school bus, and the school bus never comes. Well, the building collapse doesn't come, the disaster don't come. Many of these things don't come, and they want something to do more than, and so.
That's good.
This
though.
is part of getting them to do something, and she's gone all the way up to the deputy commissioner of emergency services and public protection to get training videos for this. On her own, this is only within a few weeks, but she's really hitting the floor running, ground running, and she's putting her team together, and you know, it's gonna be a great benefit to the town, to new people, and to people that have been here a long time and don't know where to get a service. It's going to be a hub.
That's good. I like that.
Thank you, Trina. Bob?
Just one thing, I know that we talked about this in the past, and it's probably something that we should at least look at in the near future, and it's the Public Works building, the future Public Works building.
Yeah,
Okay, so I think it's something that, you know, don't wait till the last second. I think it's something we should start thinking about over the next few months on a design, what other buildings are gonna be on that such property. And so at least we could, well, it's something that,
yeah, so we have a proposed site plan.
Yeah.
That I want to run by everyone. Yeah, I wonder if I could find it now.
we don't have to worry about now, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying, I want people to agree to the concept of it.
Okay.
Basically, what it does is it leaves the recycling center in place. It puts the ambulance building on, I'm gonna say, the same side of the property as the recycling center. And then the rest of the building, the larger area, is a DPW garage designed to be twice the size of the current garage. Not so much because we need that much space, but just to see what would fit. And all of that would fit on the Risden property with parking. And if that design is something we like, then we can go to the next step.
Who's designing it?
Well, the site plan was designed by not Malone and McBroom, but SLR. They're, by the way, they're working on the final remediation and the grant money for that. So as part of that, they designed the layout. And if we like the layout, we could then proceed to price the building.
Okay.
Which, by the way, just so everyone knows, what that means is that the street department building across from the high school would be sold, would go on the grand list, and would, you know, be very attractive to a lot of retail businesses that people are craving for on social media and elsewhere. You know, all the big names want to be across from the high school. It would enable us to sell the current ambulance building and where Jim's office is. We can already sell the old recycling center. We've already sold the old park department, but all of these new buildings will just enhance everything we're doing to beautify Rubber Avenue. And, you know, really help catapult the remaking and reshaping of Rubber Avenue much more quickly. So it's also in the TIF district, and there are also grants that we can apply for. So I think you're absolutely right that the time is right to proceed. And if you stop in this week, I'll show you what we have so far, and then we'll just keep going. Jim, are you good with that?
Thank you. So up behind the Crystal Room is no longer being considered for that area?
I don't want to say it's no longer being considered. I will say that that's an option, and keeping it there is an option. I wasn't sure we could keep it there and get everything else there.
Yeah.
But it looks like we can. Now, the area behind the Crystal Room is an extremely nice area overlooking the river. Could be a recycling center, it could be something else. So it's a good problem. In other words,
Yeah.
it's a good thing, no matter which way we go.
I think the recycling center where we have it now works. Yes. And it's big. Yes. And it probably has room for expansion if we want it. And I think it's better suited for the people as opposed to driving up that. School Street Extension. The mountain over there to go, that's all. And we currently have sand and salt up on the hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's room to expand up there, right, Jim?
Or,
I don't know, for whatever we need.
yes. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Last chance for anyone to come up with a bright idea. Hearing none? We'll go to, what's next?
19.
Okay, let's go to 19.
Motion reset to executive session at I don't even know what the hell time is, 9:10. 9:10. Well, for discussion of filing real estate, Lance's property month-to-month lease. 2 acres of Lance's property, parcels A, B, Y, and Z. Bank of America acquisition of land downtown parking. Tax incremental financing district sale of former recycling center, Rubber Avenue, Church Street, Maple Street. Personnel, Public Works Director, Assistant Building Inspector, ADA Coordinator, collective bargaining, police union, fire union, pending litigation, inviting in. Nobody.
Second. All right, not yet.
You're gonna give it to me. Or you could just make the motion and I'll just say it. Do it.
All right. I will entertain a motion that the mayor be authorized to enter into an agreement with international framers to rent raw land at the raw land at the upper parking lot on Elm Street of the former Lanxess site for $1,000 per acre on a month-to-month basis, subject to insurance and approval of the borough attorney.
Motion. Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have one abstention. I abstain. So ordered. Do we have any other matters emanating from executive session, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
No, it's time to adjourn, so I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, we wait.